That's right. Back at it again. Full custom hot dog here, baby. And today we're going to be talking about something a little different, something that I don't normally talk about. We're going to be talking about anime. We're going to be talking about the new Cyberpunk limited series, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. So, you might be wondering why I'm talking about this, and well, it's just that damn good. I don't normally talk about TV shows. This seems like it's going to be just a limited affair, as there is no announcement yet for season 2, much to my disappointment, but this was also excellent, and I think anybody and everybody should be watching this. If you're even the least bit into sci-fi and action, this is such a blast. If you don't know what Cyberpunk Edgerunners is about, well, we have a young man named David, and David's going to school to a very prestigious academy, Arasaka Academy, and he's from a poor family, so of course he's getting picked on and beaten up and bullied. And then one day he loses his mom in a tragic gang-related accident, and this sort of sends him spiraling into being a high-tech mercenary, basically.
I'm a killing machine!
Working with a group of lawless and buck-wild and interesting individuals. All the characters here are great, and it has a pretty wonderful, climactic, and tragic end. It's wonderful through and through, and quite a journey with some surprising and fun twists and turns. Based on the video game Cyberpunk 2077, if you're not familiar with that video game, it had one of the worst releases, maybe in video game history.
What were they thinking?
I'll go ahead and go out there. I'm a bit of a gamer. I try not to game as much as I used to, but I still do sometimes. And Cyberpunk was hotly anticipated for having promised so much and kind of didn't deliver enough. Almost like No Man's Sky, if you're familiar with that story. But with Cyberpunk, that game was just broken as shit. No Man's Sky was underwhelming. Cyberpunk was broken and beat ass. So one of the interesting things here is this is in the same city. It also takes place in Night City, just like the Cyberpunk video game. And a lot of people are now going back to play the video game because one of the strengths of Cyberpunk 2077 is that the world felt alive. Even though it was broken, even though it was jank, you could walk out on the street and it just felt like you were there. It felt like you were in Night City. There's people walking. Now, once you start moving around and doing stuff, that's where it no longer felt like you were in this cyberpunk simulation. But going out and just watching the streets, just doing that, felt good, and it felt big. The city feels huge, and I rebought the game. I haven't played it enough since the recent big patch. I rebought it I picked up an Xbox Series X. I played it on PC day one, and boy, that was a rough experience. My PC could barely handle it. It was turn-based at times. I am one of the people now who are eager to jump back into this because the anime brought that world that already felt alive in that small instance and really gave it some new mythos and some new life. And that's kind of what's cool about the Cyberpunk universe that they made, is all the pieces are there. And I'm hoping we get more and more seasons of just different stories that take place in Night City, these sad and kind of weird tech tragedies, if you will. And this was just such a wonderful, fun time, a sad time, and every type of feeling time rolled into one.
Slurpy good.
You've got so many characters that are great that David ends up teaming up with, and you start to even worry about David himself. As David starts out as a normal boy, he ends up getting this special spine that allows him to go incredibly fast, and then throughout the series, he starts to tech himself up more and more, and one thing that can happen to people who do that is they can become cyber psychos, which they just go nuts and are so hard to kill that the city ends up sending essentially tactical military troops after them, and it's just seek and destroy at that. So you really start to worry about David, and one thing that shocked me is characters are going to die, and that was kind of nice. And it's a bummer because you like all the characters, but in a way that just makes it better that they're willing to kill these characters. And of course, that means season 2 likely won't have anything to do with these characters. but it's still a damn good story, and it's still told so damn well. It's interesting too, because one thing I like that this series does is it drops you into the universe. Now, I don't know how someone who has zero experience with this would feel, because there's a lot of slang. Netrunner, Edgerunner, there's all these other things, these hacks, these daemons, they don't say too much. All this stuff that if you play the game, you're already familiar with, but I do like that it doesn't explain it to you. I feel like if this was made by an American company, they'd be like, oh, who's that? Oh, she's a netrunner. A netrunner's a dangerous hacker who can hack so fast, and they're incredible. You know, and they would have that little exposition, and there's not really any of that, at least in the beginning. And I kind of appreciate that. I like that it just goes, oh, you want to be in the cyberpunk world? Boom, here you go. Now we're in it. And it's a blast through and through. 10 episodes, about a half hour each, which makes it a pretty easy, straightforward watch. One of the things that's cool is the game got an update again recently. So I mentioned earlier there was a big main update that was trying to get it up to par. This recent update added some Edgerunner quest. I don't know what that is. I'm curious to see it. Probably going to be firing it up here shortly, doing some exploring around Night City, and I'm kind of before a big story mode part. I know that. I'm still pretty early on in this replay. When I played it before, I already gotten maybe halfway through. And so, like I mentioned earlier, it's been pulling people back into the game because it does do fairly well at making you feel like you're part of it. This is kind of, I guess, a review of the game as well as the series. But one of the issues I kind of have with the game is that it does set you up as this character V. Granted, you can make your character V, you can choose whatever choices you want, but it's not so much that it's you doing that, it is the character V. All the responses are V. And even though you're picking everything you want, it's just, you're still V. And I don't know, V's one of the complaints I hear a lot about V in the Cyberpunk game is that he's a big weenie. But this series caused this game to shoot back up into the #1 best-selling game on Steam. It also reached its highest peak concurrent players. So that's the most people playing at the same time since January 2021. That is incredibly huge for a game that ruined its reputation, that is still kind of in the mud, as I don't think they've gotten it to where they want to. I don't know if they're going to. They're saying an expansion is due for next year, which is, I don't know if I care. I know they've announced that they're doing a new Witcher game, which I don't care about. I didn't care too much for the Witcher game, and I would rather them just do Cyberpunk 2 because it's just so much cooler to me. But that's me. I don't care for fantasy stuff. If you show me something and it's got a dragon in it, I'm probably going to give it a thumbs down. Personally, not like on a social media space. Robots, yes, thumbs up. I'm very much robots over dragons. No fantasy for me. But that's really interesting to see an anime or a show really pull people back to give its source material a second look. You know what that didn't happen with? That didn't happen with Halo, that's for sure. That doesn't happen with a lot of these video game to movie or series adaptations. That new Resident Evil series, that did not make people want to either go back to a Resident Evil or check it out for the first time. I promise you. And if people did go back to play Resident Evil, it's because they're bummed and that's what they want to see, and not that show, which was also, I didn't finish it, but what I saw was pretty bad. But this show is fantastic. It's made by Studio Trigger. I'm not a big anime guy, so that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot from me. I have seen some of the stuff they've done. I've seen a little bit of things like Kill la Kill, which was fun. I could see that being up my alley. I'm not so much a weeb these days, though. I've caught parts of Promare, maybe the first half. The animation is super fun in those. And I don't know. People can recommend me animes in the comments if you want. I'm an old head, right? I was into anime when I was much younger, before there were terms like weeb. And they were calling it Japanime. That's how far back that goes. Sci-Fi used to show anime in the morning, and so that's where my appreciation of the genre came, and I just thought it was the coolest thing, all these robots and futurescapes. And maybe that's part of why I like Cyberpunk so much, is to me this is the anime aesthetic that I was introduced to. The first anime I ever watched were Dominion Tank Police, which I still love, Project Echo, Ghost in the Shell. Granted, Echo not so much, but Dominion Tank Police, Ghost in the Shell, very much similar to this in aesthetics. It's all cyberpunk. Hideo Kojima said this felt a lot like Cyber City, OEDO. It's not something I'm too familiar with, but it does look like, again, one of those 80s animes. I had a friend say, Hot Dog, you like boomer anime. And yes, it's 100% true. I love and miss that hand-drawn style. And I don't know, I guess that does make me old, but there's something about that gritty nature that really adds to that aesthetic, especially when it comes to cyberpunk and anime aesthetic, man. It looks so cool when it's hand-drawn, real deal stuff. The animation here is slick. It looks pretty damn good. Everything pops. The character designs are awesome. You're going to find characters that you like. I know the internet has. The internet, Twitter, the Twitter sphere has been lighting up with this, and it's great. I really hope we can get a series 2, because it would be a damn disappointment if we don't. There's so many great stories to tell in this universe. I've heard some people say that this is a story the game should have told. I don't agree. The game story is great as a game. In the game story, you basically have Keanu Reeves as a techno terrorist living in your head, and you have to get him out, or you're going to die, or he's going to take over. That's where some of the branching paths kick in, and that is super cool. And the story that Edgerunners tells on its own is very good. So now we just have 2 cool stories taking place in this universe, and there are so many more that can be told, and it makes me a little excited. Though, again, who knows what the future plans are? Maybe this is a one-off, but this was great. Soundtrack is fantastic. Animation's good. Characters. I don't know too much about voice work. I couldn't tell you if it's good. To me, it just sounds like a normal dub. I did watch it dubbed. You can call me a baka fucking gaijin. That's okay. I will tend to watch a lot of these things dubbed with subtitles. So the best of both worlds, I guess. But yeah, the last anime I probably watched before this was JoJo's. I'm also a JoJo fan from the early 2000s, which is cool to see it still around and bigger than ever. People love it now, and that's been really cool to see. Really cool to see it blow up, and we get really cool video games about it, which has been rad. But I'm kind of just rambling here about anime and stuff. I would say give this a watch. If you're not into anime, but you're into action cyberpunky stuff, I still think this is a recommended watch. I just had such a blast with this. I may not be the target audience because I'm not the biggest fan of anime anymore, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the game. I'd love to hear someone's take on this show who isn't the biggest fan of the game, maybe who doesn't know the game, who doesn't know the lore and stuff. And I'd like to hear your take. And if you don't like anime, did you check this out? Did you like it? So, of course, let me know all that in the comments. But I am your host, Full Custom Hot Dog. You could follow me on Twitter. It's Full Custom Hot Dog without the last because that's just too long for Twitter. So thank you all for watching, and until next time. If you like what you see,
I love what I see.
Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you can watch whatever comes next. And if you like the music you hear, you can follow me on SoundCloud and Spotify. Check the description for links.